Haha. Hi, I have a sponsor. This is Elmes All Naturals. It looks weird, so I wrote it backwards just for you. There's that. And I also want to thank this guy, barberfinancial.com. Very proud of myself. I can write backwards. Who knew? So if you have any financial concerns, you want to talk to this guy. He's my buddy, Captain Paul Barber. You need to call Captain Paul. He'll look after your money. You want some insurance? You want to clean your house? Use that. Okay, so that's it. Now, I'll get better at this as we go. This is only my second interview in the world of Zoom, and I'm very excited because right now joining us is Barry Elmes, drummer, composer, producer, music educator, industry big shot. He's joining us any second right now. I've just touched the magic button. Barry Elmes, are you there? Oh, he is not connected to audio yet. We're looking for audio and video. It's possible I could start this again. Maybe I have to write to him. Okay, Barry, if you can hear me, you're going to need to click on your audio and your video. This is new. Okay.
Yes.
There you go. There's your audio.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Me?
Now, in the bottom left corner, you'll see a video button.
Okay.
Then I get to see you still have a mustache.
Well, here's the thing. There's also a button somewhere, my wife tells me, where I can get rid of having to look at myself. So
I don't know. What I do is I go up in the right corner where it says gallery view.
I don't have that.
Oh, well, when I click on that, I see two of us in a screen the same size. But if you're looking at me, am I way bigger than you? Like I'm a big thing?
Oh, we're equal.
Oh, we're equal. Yeah, that's the way I've got it set up too.
Okay, well, I can live with that. It's just, I find looking at myself rather distracting.
I know. I don't know how I pull myself away from the mirror myself.
Yeah, there you go. So is the audio okay like this? You can.
Yeah, I can see you. I can hear you. You got a very nice looking kitchen. Where are you living these days?
What's that?
Where are you?
Well, I live in a town called Kincardine, which is right on the shore of Lake Huron. So, I had to close all the windows because the waves are a little uppity today. So you have the background noise of, well, and
so Kincardine, they have a party there once every 10 years where the entire town shows up and gets drunk and they dress like Halloween in the middle of summer.
How did you know this? I think it's called the Old Boys, and although now it's the Old Boys and Girls reunion, or the old something reunion, but everybody who ever lived here comes back. Yeah.
This is so weird. I've never heard of any party that's every 10 years, maybe every 2 years, or maybe even 5, but every 10 years, that's a big, weird party. I went to it a few years back, and I was dressed I thought I was dressed like Jesus. But all the kids kept calling me Moses. And I said, why are they calling me Moses, not Jesus? And my girlfriend says, oh, honey, Jesus died at 33.
Good one.
So Kincardine is a weird little place. I love your kitchen. That just looks beautiful. How long have you been out there?
We moved here pretty much a little over a year ago when I sort of retired from my teaching gig at York about a year ago, and I thought, you know what, really like the cottage. We don't really need 2 houses. We had a house in Schaumburg just north of Toronto, so we decided, okay, first it was get rid of the cottage, and we've got this nice house, and I'm going, that's backwards. Get rid of the house, build on to the cottage.
Yeah.
Live by the lake.
Right.
It was the right move. Yeah. I mean, you can't see the lake, but the kitchen's nice.
Now, are you teaching at all? Are you doing private studies or anything?
Well, I was till COVID, COVID thing hit, and that kind of shut down everything. I just didn't feel right. I put it out to the students that I had, and I said, I don't really feel comfortable about doing this. They were coming out here to the house, like they'd come out for half a day and hang and do the lesson, and we just shut it down. And we haven't rebooted that yet. So I'm hoping to soon, but we'll see what happens.
Now, the jazz people that watch these, they already know who you are, but I'm really interested in people who just love good music. Maybe they don't know all the jazz cats.
Yeah.
You have a very strange story, I think, about how you play drums and especially how they're set up. The left-handed kit setup, playing right-handed, but you're actually a left-handed person. Well, can you explain that?
Possibly. I can tell you the ridiculous story from my childhood on how this all got started. I'll try and cut it down to a reasonable length, but my parents put me in, I was so interested in drumming. So when I was about 7, my parents put me in this local Kiwanis youth marching band thing. And I didn't have any drums. And so as a year or so went by, became apparent I wanted to learn to play the drums. So they let me bring all these parade drums home. And so I could sort of form my own little set in the basement during the week between the marching band get-togethers. And came Sunday night, and my dad says, I don't know if it was the Beatles or I don't know who it was on the Ed Sullivan Show, but he said, hey, there's this band coming on. You got to come up and then you'll be able to see how to set up the drums. There'll be a drummer. I said, great. So I'm in a real hurry because these spots, as you probably recall, I think you probably remember the Ed Sullivan Show, they usually play a tune and very short, like a minute or two.
Yeah. 3 minutes and you're off the stage. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're starting. I'm carrying the drums up and I see the drummer on the screen and I'm going, okay, this is my thinking as a kid. Okay, the hi-hat's over there. Hi-hat. Okay, snare drum's here. So I set it up mirror image.
Right, you're watching it on TV, so you're actually completely reversed. Yeah.
Which makes me sound like a complete idiot, but nonetheless,
well, you're a little kid. Oh, and also, people don't understand, Barry, that when we were young, when you were watching it, so you didn't have YouTube to keep going back to reference it. You got those 3 minutes live, and it was off.
Yeah,
you didn't have any time at all.
Yeah. And that's the way I set up my drums. I was self-taught for a number of years, and by the time I finally got to a good teacher, he kind of said, yeah, I don't think we can mess with this because you've already been doing this so long. And what's weird is, yes, I'm playing a left-handed set of drums, right-handed. I can't explain why this is because I'm a left-handed person, but I've always been pretty ambidextrous. So I don't know. That part of it I can't explain.
Well, it might make sense. Your sound is so unique. It might make sense. That's why you sound a little different than a lot of people. There's kind of a delicateness to it.
Well, yeah, I guess so. That delicateness is probably because much of the playing I did before I had my own band and all that kind of stuff as a leader, really trying to make the music work and support players, brushes and things, and trying to make them sound good. Like that's basically what the job is, right? When you're
also Time Warp, your first really like famous band, you didn't have comp instruments. You didn't have piano or guitar. You had 2 horns, bass and drums, right?
Yeah, and it's funny, like Al Henderson and I were co-leaders of that band, and I can't speak for him, but my influences at that time were sort of classic recordings like, Sonny Rollins Trio live at the Vanguard, no comping instrument. The Charles Mingus Quartet recordings, with Eric Dolphy and I believe Ted Curson and Danny Richmond on drums, no comping instrument, and just the power and the interplay. And I liked the idea. What I really was attracted to was in the Mingus band in particular, is the role of the rhythm section wasn't subservient. There was a real, driving force, and the band was kind of built, I think, from the bottom up, especially with Mingus.
Right. Well, when you started this band, I think no one was doing that. No one was influenced the way you were. Everybody was kind of sounding a bit more like the Miles Davis. They had really serious things they wanted to do. The Toronto jazz scene, I mean. And the 70s and 80s started to really, I think you were one of the people that really pushed it and made it a little bit different.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment. And you're absolutely right about the Miles thing, because the reason I moved to Toronto in the first place, this would have been early 70s, was because York University had a new jazz program. and I wanted to go there and learn how to play this music. And at those days, other than Humber, that was the only place that really had any kind of jazz thing happening in Canada.
Right.
So I moved here, and I quickly realized in the Toronto scene, everybody wanted to try and play like the Miles Davis Quintet. That seemed to be, you know, that with Tony Williams and those guys, Wayne Shorter, that band.
Right.
And that's fantastic. So when you got some you know, little new guy going, yeah, but what about Monk and Mingus? Maybe we could play some. No.
No, that's too far out. It's not straight ahead. Yeah, amazing.
I don't know the rationale. I just think the Miles Davis Quintet from the mid '60s was still the hip thing for a lot of local players. And it's great music.
Yeah,
it's just,
absolutely.
I wasn't from the Toronto scene. I came here from a little town further west, and all I had was records, and I didn't have clubs to go and hear what people were doing, you know. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, at some point, I mean, so you were a student at York, but at some point you started doing things with Phil Nimmons, right?
That was a bit later on, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, boy, when did I join the Phil Nimmons? Ooh, probably, God, I can't remember when that was. It was a Phil Nimmons quartet. You know what? I'm thinking mid '80s.
Yeah, I was thinking sometime in the '80s at least. And he started kind of a course also at U of T that was more about big bands, and that was really, I mean, it was a jazz course now at U of T, right?
Yeah,
Really
well, I was very fortunate in that I was offered the drum chair, the teaching chair there when they started that program. I taught there for 10 years. It's hilarious, you know, we could get into a whole thing about trying to survive as a jazz player, you know, as a jazz musician. And by survive, I'm not talking artistically, I mean financially.
Right.
Most guys try and get some kind of teaching gig if they can, even if it's private teaching or whatever. But at one point, it just got insane. At one point in my life, I was teaching at the U of T program, at the Mohawk program, 1 day at Humber, and 2 days at York. That was my week.
Oh my.
I mean, I taught at them all.
Right.
And then I just started to go nuts. So I had to, you know.
Now, I've had a lot of people talk about you as a jazz educator, and I have a theory. Excuse me if I get a bit Brian Linehan here. That's a Canadian reference. But you had a teacher that you liked very much. I think, was it Dolph Little or something like that? You had a teacher that was really good, and then you had a young teacher who was a bit slappy. He was a bit like maybe in the movies. He was a bad teacher, right? And then you had a high school teacher who thought you already could play drums, so why would he teach you? So your teachers were, maybe you had to be a teacher because some of your teachers weren't so hot.
I've never really, you're right, all those things are true. I never really went through that thought process, but sometimes it takes someone else to point it out to you. So,
right. Well, because people say you're a really good jazz educator, you're a good drum teacher, and also as a composer. So my thought is like, well, if you have a bunch of bad teachers and a couple of good ones, so you have something to weigh off of it, but you really go, you know what, it's not rocket scientists. I want to encourage people to play and find their voice.
I think so. And I think the other thing is just be honest as a teacher, you know, keep the jive factor and, you know, down and just try and figure out what the students need. They're all different. And, you know, some you have to approach them completely different than you would the next person, and that just to try and help them out. You know, there's no formula.
I remember you saying in an interview once, you really thought Charlie Watts was the perfect drummer for the Stones, and Ringo Starr, perfect drummer for the Beatles. I'm assuming you mean like their simple kind of perfect playing, that it wasn't too out there. Is that what you meant by that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. It's not that their playing wasn't out there, and that it's just they recognized what their music required in a drummer, and they delivered it perfectly. You know, perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no idea. I never hung out with the Stones or the Beatles. I don't know the social interplay in the band. But I do remember, and this is fairly recently, it kind of reconfirms what I've always thought about Ringo. I heard an interview with him, and he's just talking about how, you know, people say to him, well, you know, you didn't play many solos and all that stuff. You didn't do this, you didn't do that. And he says, yeah, I know, but I was very conscious of the fact what my role was. And the music didn't need drum solos. It would need a fill here and there to lift up the music.
Right.
And that's what I did. And the thing about Ringo for me was, like way back in the mid 60s, to me, he was the most musical of the rock drummers, because his little fills, you knew it was him in a second. No one else played fills like that.
Right.
They're very small things, you know, boo bop bop ba doo ba, you know, just things, but that isn't what drummers were doing then, you know, and I thought it was inspiring to me as a kid.
Well, I'll tell you a secret about the Rolling Stones, because I did hang out for a few years backstage here and there. Charlie has his own little tent where he has high tea. He dresses for room service when they come to his hotel. He is a respectable gentleman. But the amazing thing about them backstage is when you hear them at a rehearsal, he is a soft R&B and jazz drummer. And then they have this magic button that makes the drums sound really huge, but he plays like chopsticks.
Yeah.
He plays like a sushi chef, just the right amount on the plate.
Yeah, no, and I can hear that and see that. And, you know, when I see film footage of them playing, I can see, and I can actually hear what his touch is, but the sound is huge, you know, but he's
and
not whacking the drums.
The guy is in amazing shape. So about some of the people you've played with, I just want to go through a couple of these, like Mo Kaufman. What was that like back in the day?
That was fantastic on a number of reasons, because you got to remember that Mo was sort of a local heavyweight in Toronto, because he was famous by then because he had his Swinging Shepherd Blues hit from the late 50s and everything. So I come along all these years later and get to join this band. Ed Bickert's in that band at the time. So I had already done some trio things with Ed, but getting to play with Ed every night and just hang with him, that was an experience. And Bernie Sinensky's playing piano. I mean, that's you know, that's pretty happening. And in my case, it was Kieran Overs was the bass player when I was, for the most part, and then Pat Collins later on. But the thing about it was Mo, you know, he was also had a lot of studio work and stuff. He was just one of these guys. So being in that band kind of opens a world to all the other local players and people that you sort of used to go out and listen to. Now you're kind of meeting and hanging with and exchanging ideas. Plus we got to tour. And the best part for me was, had I not been in that band, I never would have got to play with Dizzy Gillespie. And that touring with Dizzy was just like, okay, that was a real education on a number of levels. So
I remember your album 5 Minute Warning. You have Dizzy's Lesson. Turned into the Shim Sham Shimmy. So you've taken one of his rhythms, which is really complicated and groovy, and turned it into a song. How much time did you get to spend with Dizzy?
Well, I was about to say quite a bit. It's not like we were hanging all day of that. Dizzy had this thing that he did, because he's traveling all the time. When he's not playing with us, he's always going somewhere, you know. I mean, it wasn't just the Mo Kaufman quintet featuring Dizzy Gillespie. We have 2 nights off, he's gone. He's flying somewhere for a night and he's back. So his thing was to survive all this jet lag and that. I thought this was the funniest thing, but he would never change his watch. So no matter what time zone he was in, and he did this intentionally, because he couldn't cope with jet lag. The problem is the rest of us had to deal with the fact that he'd be fast asleep, you know, all day long. And then he'd want to hang till 7 in the morning because he was just in Switzerland and now it's day, you know, like it was, it was craziness. But just getting to hang with him backstage and just playing drums with him in front of me, watching him, body language, he taught me so many things in very subtle ways. And I learned over the years that the greatest of the players have a way, when they're working with younger supporting players, have a way of imparting what they need out of a player without bashing you over the head with it. You know, it's like, don't do that. I need this. Don't ever, you know, none of that. The great players don't do that. They have a way of somehow you just learn, you just know, and it's wonderful. It's a warm fuzzy as opposed to a you idiot.
Exactly. Hey, when you mentioned Ed Bickert, didn't you go to Brazil with Ed Bickert?
I did, yes. And Rick Wilkins was in that. The saxophone player Rick
Love
Wilkins
Rick
made the
Wilkins.
quartet.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable. That was a great trip. Yeah,
Rick Wilkins, another great composer and arranger,
yeah.
kind of
No,
leads me into yours. How on earth, because there's only a handful of drummers I can think of that are as prolific as you are. When did you start writing, and what was the motivation for you to go, I'm going to actually write for a full band?
you know what? I mean, when I was in high school, my longtime buddy from the same hometown, Al Henderson, the bass player, I've known him since I'm 5 years old, and he lived a couple blocks away. So we had the Al Henderson Blues Band in high school. So we used to write a couple tunes for that, but that was just blues lyrics to 3 chords, you know.
Yeah.
What you're talking about was basically once I went to York, John Gittins was the person running the program, and the co-person was Bob Whitmer, who was a fantastic bass player and teacher too. Well, these guys were teaching me about theory and everything. Plus I was studying privately with Jim Blackley and doing nothing else. So I was completely focused on the lessons, all this stuff. All of them said to me, you need to compose. Not because they thought I could be a great composer, but they finally got it through my thick head that in order to understand this music, you need to try and write some of it. So you really see how it works, you know, and plus, so that as a drummer, you can hear what's happening harmonically, you know, in the band while it's going on. And this was a revelation to me. I mean, it seems pretty obvious, but to me, I thought, oh yeah, dude, I never thought of that. I guess I'll write some tunes. So of course I started writing simple tunes. Most of them went directly into the wastebasket where they belonged, but eventually some of them made a bit of sense and it just built from there. You know,
Well, and you put out a lot of records. I know I've told you this in fan letters before, but the album Redshift is just a masterpiece of an album. And Theme for Sterling Hayden, I play it on when I go sailing, and it sounds like it was made for sailing.
Yeah,
Your compositions really, really put you in another place.
It's funny you should say that because, well, I'm an obvious fan of Sterling Hayden. There's so many people don't even know who he is, and that's not surprising. But I mean, his whole thing was sailing, right? I don't know what you know about him, but
well, make a movie, make money, go sailing, run out of money, go back to Hollywood, make another movie.
Yeah, so I think somehow all of that got mixed into what I was thinking about writing this tune for him, and yeah, there was this element of a out at sea kind of mood behind the tune. So
you know, have you done any soundtrack work? Has somebody given you big bucks for a movie yet?
No.
Believe me, if people listen to your music, that should be happening sooner than later.
I think it better happen sooner than later if it's gonna happen.
You started Cornerstone Records how long ago? So it was Al Henderson and you and Mike Murley, right? Your record label?
Right. It was those dates I know. That would have been 1993. And let's see. Yes, Al and I were sort of, and Mike was involved with a label called Unity Records at the time. And this was an artist run thing. John McLeod, trumpeter John McLeod, was sort of the main spearhead behind that. And I don't know why, but I guess they thought I had some sort of business chops or something. So I started to do more of the office work for Unity, and became apparent to me I wasn't able to have time to do anything for myself, like in terms of trying to write music or promote my stuff, to do anything, because Unity was all across Canada. Artists were everywhere, and they all had their own little thing, and they're going, Barry, why isn't my record in the local Becker store in Regina or whatever, you know? And I'm going, I don't know, but blah, blah, blah. So finally I walked away from it, and I said to Al, you know, we could probably help ourselves out here. Why don't we just start our own label? And I thought, okay, 2 people running a label, it's kind of hard to vote on something, because if he doesn't like it and I do, no decisions made. So you need at least 3,
Great
you
idea.
know, especially if you're going to incorporate, which we did. So as silly as it sounds, that was the thinking, to have 3. But then I thought, well, you know what? We got to have Mike Murley because we know him so well. He's a friend, but also I had the feeling that he would become the most popular musician on our label, and I was right. I mean, he's very active, prolific, younger than Al and I, active, and so it's all worked out great. I do all the business stuff now, and I'm happy with that. I got time to do it.
You have a huge catalog of music too. There's
Well,
a lot of records. I don't know.
there's
30,
over,
40
there's
more?
over,
Yeah.
yeah, there's 52 right now, but you know, given that the label's 30 years old, it's not that prolific when you think of it. It's just we're very careful. We developed our fan base and our market slowly, knowing that one bad investment would kill us because we're just such a small label.
Right. It really has to work. Yeah.
Yeah, so things had to sort of slowly percolate and build. So we would put out 1 or 2 CDs a year. That was about it, but we did it every year, and they're still doing it. So yeah.
So we live in interesting times right now. I'm curious if you're just taking it as it comes, right? Like at some point, you'll do some shows when the club's open, and you'll do some teaching when it's safe to have people over.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, you know, James, it's funny because fortunately I have a reasonably good sense of humor, and it takes a bit to get me rattled. So, you know, when I retired from teaching at York and we moved out here, I thought, this is great. It's going to be a great place to live, and now finally I can really work on getting, you know, tours and things for the quintet. So I had a pretty good slate of gigs, all, you know, from spring right through till the fall for the quintet. And as you know, as much as anybody, they just one by one fell like dominoes. So the band has no work at all.
Right.
Like just about everyone else I know is in the same boat.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was funny because, you know, I'm all set to go, and yes, finally I can really spend time on the quintet.
Yeah.
And now I'm just thinking, okay, it's a waiting game, and hopefully it'll come back, and that's it.
Yeah, I think 2021 will be the quintet year. Right now, anyone booking, they're looking for duos that are 6 feet apart. It's going to be a little while before you can get.
Well, yeah, and I get all that, and I think the other thing is, you know, my quintet was formed in '91, so 2021's our 30th anniversary. Is that right? 3 decades. Yeah.
Great.
So, you know, be a good year for something to happen.
Absolutely. Well, I wish you great luck. We're going to keep playing your music on Jazz FM with Wild Joyous Abandon. And anyone watching this, you should be going on to Cornerstone Records website and pick up some Barry Elmes records and some Mike Murley and all the other stuff.
Great. Thank you so much, James.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have fun.
Yep, you too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.